going to try to do 1 or 2 book reviews a week. We're going to try to get that kind of figured out, see how it goes, see if people like it or not. Let's try to think of, the first book I'm going to go with is Patriots by James Wesley Rawles. Patriots is the quintessential prepper book. I think it's almost the go-to or the Bible of prepping. If you wanted a book that covers, how would I want to say it? A book that's kind of a how-to book written with a story would be how I call Patriots. It's maybe not the bestly written story in Patriots, or James Rawles will basically even tell you that he's not really the best author, but at the same time, there's a lot of content in that book that are very good, and it's very spot on in some ways. And it's also, I'll give you the synopsis later, but it's also kind of, when I say it's the Bible, I say it's the Bible. Like, if you guys had the money, the time, and the ability, this is the way to live. And he does live it. The author actually lives out in the Redoubt. And for anybody that doesn't know, the Redoubt is Montana, Idaho. There's 2 or 3 states in that area. And they went out there and they set up camp and they homestead and they prep and they just live it. And he writes his books. He also runs survivalblog.org. I want to say it's org. Very well-written guy in the sense that he's written about 10 books. There's more in the series. I'll touch on those. And he's also written a few straight-up how-tos. So if you want to check him out, it's James James Wesley Rawles. And so I can start with the beginning of the book. The synopsis of the book is this. It's about a group of preppers. I want to say they're in their 30s, maybe late 20s, 30s. There is 2 families that 2 of them are married. I want to say there's about 6 people in the group initially, 6 to 8. They were all based in Chicago. They started the group when they were in college. They added members, they got rid of members. And then 2 of them, one couple, moved out to Idaho. And they bought a farm and worked from home. They worked in the hospital. And that's how they basically made their homestead or retreat there. Another one of them followed him out there and bought kind of an adjoining home near the property. And he worked from home too. So they had 2 properties going. And the first part of the book talks about the preps they did when they had their house and the fortifications they did. They talk about the doors, the windows, and their water filtration, their solar setup, their what else I go to? Their farming, their sheds. The vehicles they bought were all under the assumption, I always call it the story assumption of EMPs. So they all bought 75 or older, and they kind of standardized it. So they all bought like Chevy trucks, like square bodies, or some of them bought early Mustangs with the 302 and early Bronco, which kind of is strange because it's really small if you think about it now. But they all have that style. A group standardized their weapons, which this is where it comes in why it's the Bible of books. They started a militia in the book, but to me it's the quintessential concept of your 5-man, 6-man teams. They practice playing, fire teams, and they got pretty familiar with each other. They got, people. There was a guy, Jeff. This is where it gets a little weird. Look, Jeff was the Marine who never deployed, but he went to Recon Marine, then he went to Ranger School, Air School, Jump School, or Airborne School. He went to Air Assault and Air Jump. It was all his qualifications and wasn't this, well-trained guy, but never deployed. To me, that that's pretty unheard of. The guy comes later in the book. He comes in the book group and then he leaves the group before anything happens. But he later comes in. He's a pretty cool character, I think. In my opinion, being on the military side, he would be someone that I could relate to. Obviously, I've never been in special forces like this guy in the book's written, but I think they kind of oversold him a little bit. But the first part of the book, it goes back to it. He outlines a bunch of things, and that's kind of one of the faults, or I wouldn't say faults, I'll call them Rawlesisms. Rawls loves detail. And when I mean detail to the point where he'll talk about something like, they bought this radio, specific brand, let's call it a CB radio. They bought it out of, this catalog, and because they were afraid of being tracked, they used a false, fake ID or da-da-da-da. And, they go into it. There's, a page written about this. So if you like detail and you like that, it's a great book. And he goes into some of the physics and how their house is set up, their location, and their dog, and all the stuff. The book's written, I should say the series of books that follow it are all based in this realm, if you want to call it James Rawles' world, based on an economic collapse. So, the main character, Todd, he is an accountant, but he works from home, so that he has to go to Chicago twice a year or so. So on his trip to Chicago, to his firm, they're talking about the, excuse me, Jesus, I need to get this cold over. They're talking about the accounting firm about the economic crisis and the collapse that's coming. And inflation's rising, it's going up, it's crazy. The accounting firm's basically precursor to the crash. Todd sends out a bunch of emails to his group. It's time to go. And then he heads home on his plane. He gets back, and then they start prepping when they get home. They have their initial preps, but they start preparing for the collapse. Like, they start taking inventory of the stuff they need to do. Jesus. And they get it ready. They start stocking up on food. They get a little things here and there. They start preparing to have their people come in. The next part of the book is all about the remaining of their crew, the group as they call it. And then some of them are filtering in, and then they tell their little bit backstory. Some of the things I found interesting in the book, or I don't know the logistics of it because it's obviously a book, but they would train once a month, and they lived in Chicago. Most of them live in Chicago, and most of the stuff was down here in Idaho. It's quite the drive. So, I mean, even if you took Friday off and drove up there, it's just, some of the book doesn't always flow right. Like, some of it doesn't always make sense. The other problem with the book that you're going to run into is he's revised this book 4 or 5 times, and he's added characters, or he's made things a little bit longer. So sometimes things doesn't add up. And sometimes he's adjusted fire for, like, the current president, or during President Obama, he actually changed a little bit. So certain time frames don't always make sense because the book wasn't completely adjusted. But overall, a great book. A lot of people use it because they base a lot of their prepping off this book about, the Berkeley water filter systems, the basics of what you need to do. And it's a pretty big book. So, the next part is people are coming in. They tell their story of how things are going bad in Chicago, how they should have left earlier. One family, or a couple, I should say, they, for some reason, didn't join together. Like, I thought that was odd, that there was two single men, not together, but two single men who called each other up and they wanted to go together. But the couple didn't convoy together with them. Like, they're all part of this group. They all, like, individually left. And I know it makes for a better story because this couple runs into trouble and they have to basically abandon what they have in their cars and make it on foot with a bug-out bag and a rifle, and they have to make their way across, the Midwest and into the mountains and get to Idaho. So, I mean, yeah, I get it. So, it's just some of the things in that story that get a little weird to me. He also has what I'm going to call Rawlesisms on what he's going to call looting. Now, I'll bring up looting in my personal view on it, but looting to the point that this young man who was an ROTC grad, or ROTC kid that was just making his way across, was hung up at a cabin, surviving, getting his own food. He had deer, he was, making fires, doing his thing. He noticed the cabin had a bunch of food laying out, it was a hunting cabin, and he didn't eat it, he felt like it wasn't his, and it would be stealing. Mind you, these people never came back during that whole time he was there. And I looked at it like, you're starving. This is the epitome question sometime. I'll bring this up later. But you're starving to death, and you won't open a can because it's not yours. I think if I were a survivor, or if I were coming back to my cabin and the guy ate a few cans, and it was this good, but he had a can or two, I'm not going to be mad. I think it's just the way it is, Granted, yeah, if it was the only thing I had left and he ate it, yeah, I could see being upset, mad, and probably would want to kill the guy, but it's just, it goes to such an extreme where that you're not gonna, you'd rather die than take the food. So, that was kind of one bizarre thing I get with it. And then throughout the book, they have, they live near a road, but not a busy road, and they set up, what do they call them? They basically set up traps where they have fake little hideouts along the road, and they pop up and they surprise these people all the time, like, haha, we got you. The first group they run into is these communist looters, cannibalists, So it's like this real extreme left, And yeah, they put them down, They kill them. There's no quarters, there's no nothing, and that's cool, I get it. And here comes the Rawlesisms again. They find all the stuff that these guys looted and refuse to touch it. Mind you, that during out the book, they find good people and they add them to the group, but then there's a struggle to find, weapons and logistics for them. But you already got some stuff. They threw up red flags like, no, we can't touch it. That's looters. That's stolen property. We can't use that to go buy goods or anything. And it's just, that kind of irked me. I think you're okay in that sense. And I'll talk about looting again later. They run across a family who had mom, dad, and a daughter. And the guy's a machinist, and for some reason the guy's carrying around a bunch of his machining equipment. They had, really nice mountain bikes and trailer, and it made sense, in the book. Fortunate for them, So that was an interesting concept of finding people, I guess. I mean, are you going to really find people, or is it just Hollywood written? It comes to a weird question of how do you add someone and then actually trust them. You're trusting someone to join your group at a time like this when most people are going to lie, and at a time when you think that, people are going to be, it's your life. Your life is in your hands. There is no cops. There is no rule of law. How do you add something? It brings up a good point. And then, what they do as a group, Todd's the essential leader, but they all vote, so it's a democracy. But so they vote people in, and it has to be unanimous. And they all, for the beginning of the book, they all stay at Todd's house. All the families do, and eventually they split because they keep adding on between the two homes. And the couple that's going across country runs into things, and they later meet up. And I'm not gonna wreck the book, but they eventually make it, and then they're all one big happy family. The book has got highs and lows. And like I said, it's a how-to, so there's a lot of how-to and what you need kind of in it in between. And then what is going on is without Wolf Law, you have Rawls' world, you have the UN take over. So the UN's pushing, and the United States is just completely devastated. There's sickness, there's mobs, there's gangs, there's looters. So they're losing a lot of the population. Somehow the UN gets control. They install a puppet government. The puppet government somehow gets control of the gold or what's left in Fort Knox. They have a mismatch of military from all over, and they try basically going to territory to territory or state to state, and they try taking over or quelling the state and unifying it under this UN thing. It's kind of an interesting concept. It's tough, and then Todd's group, and they go to war, and they fight it guerrilla style. And depending which version of the book you have, the newer versions they go into a lot more detail, and the older versions, I think he got excuse me, I think he got bored and kind of ended it like quicker. So the newest version has much more to like detail how they fought it. They also, throughout the book, they run into another militia or another group, and they butt heads. And the other group is kind of written in a way that they're kind of dumb, but they're helpful but dumb. Yeah, I can see that too. Like, how is your group gonna work with another group? Like, how do you work together? How do you coexist? That group during the book offers to absorb them because they're a larger group into theirs. Todd's group says no. We have our own way of doing things, our own structure, our own chain of command. I don't feel comfortable, becoming part of your group, which is perfectly normal. Honestly, our group actually had someone offer that to us a while ago, and I said, no, that's cool, we're good. I don't want any part of it. I don't want someone telling me what to do or how to run it because you want to be the leader of everything. Right? So they work together, they fight their little war, and with all of Todd's books or all the Patriots series books, they all kind of have this like plateau ending where the UN gets defeated, everybody's kind of happy, the world is rebuilt in a libertarian sense, and all wrongs are not right. So it's got a happy ending. It's fairly decent, I would say. It's the one book I'm going to tell you that I read twice a year, if not once a year for sure, twice a year sometimes. And if you have it on Audibles, it's about 26 hours. So, if you're a steady reader, it's about a 26-hour read. Maybe you can get it done faster. You should be able to find this book for anywhere between $5 used to $15. It's just, I think I look at it too. You'll read it once, and it's kind of a compelling read. Some of it's boring, and some of it's dry, but you'll get through it, and then you go, man, I want to read the book again because I missed a bunch of things that seems like, how do I need to do this, or what do I need? So yeah, you'll read it again with a highlighter, and you'll be like, oh yeah, and a bookmarker. You're like, yep, mark this chapter. Let's go research these Berkey filters, or let's go research how to do this. The book really brings up a couple of points too on tactics. James Wesley Rawles is I want to say he was an intelligence officer in the Army or U.S. Army. And I don't know how long he was in, but he retired out or got out. He ended his commission. And then he basically became like a homesteader, or he went on like these wilderness things, and he lives it. So in that sense, when he writes about it, it's true. He's writing true. He also writes a lot of his tactics from an intelligence standpoint. So it's kind of, you can start seeing it if you're in the military. You can see the intelligence officer's viewpoint put into a book. Where I think one of the quirks I had with it was Jeff, these special forces guy, he's not put in charge, and the ROTC kid is coming up with the mission plan. Which I get in a sense that, yeah, you're going to want to mix roles so that everybody knows how to do something. But at the same time, it was a real world mission, and I don't know if I would want someone who has no idea, never been in conflict. Then I guess, in the book, Jeff's never been in combat, but Jeff's wealth of knowledge has all this. He's just got to be great. So, use the book to your advantage. Follow with a highlighter. Take a notebook with you, because you're going to want to take notes. So, James Wesley Rawles on the Patriot. It's book 1 of, I believe, 4 or 5 in, I'm going to call it the Patriot series. There's other books I'll bring up. And just keep an eye out for what he publishes. Go to Survival Blog and read what he has. He's got pretty good articles. So, thank you, and have a good day.